I want to tell you about two people. Okay. The first person wakes up at 5 a.m. every single day. They track their HRV, their heart rate variability, their sleep score. They track their cortisol, their ketone levels, their glucose response to every meal. They have one of those things on the back of their arms, They are always including and tracking the response to organic blueberries, which apparently spiked them too much. So now they're out of that. They take 47 supplements timed precisely to their circadian rhythm so that they can have red light therapy, Planol, a cold plunge, hyperbaric chamber, all in their garage to use whenever they need. They spend 4 hours a week reviewing their biometric data, and they have optimized every single measurable variable of their biology. And they are completely, quietly, desperately miserable because they are so focused on living longer that they've actually forgotten to live in the first place. Now let's talk about the second person, okay? The second person is very different. The second person laughs loudly and often. The kind of laugh, the laughs that they take over the whole body and sometimes kind of make them snore, which makes you laugh harder. And then you kind of have the church giggles like you can't stop. That's that person. They say yes to things that scare them. They're always trying new things, and they love people with their whole heart. They're not carefully managed. They don't have appropriate boundaries. They have meals that go too late, drinks that are too many, and conversations that go even later. Okay. They constantly are embarrassing themselves with what they say, how it comes out, what they actually meant to say. And this is on a regular basis. They change their mind, they change their jobs, they change partners, and they genuinely could not HRV is at all, let alone last Tuesday. And the research, the actual peer-reviewed research that is published, replicated, randomized, controlled trial research from Harvard and UCLA and Loma Linda University and the World Health Organization says the second person is actually going to outlive the first. I'm Dr. Shalane Carter. This is Be the Frequency, and today we're talking about outliving, not as a longevity metric. I'm not talking about living the longest. This is not a biohacking goal. Okay. This is a way of being so fully, so boldly, so joyfully alive at that moment that the length of your life almost becomes this secondary consideration to the quality of your life. And then, because this is, of course, Be the Frequency, and we talk about things that are very real, very factual, in the realm of quantum physics, spirituality, all those things, we do not make claims without receipts. So the science is going to show you that this is how you're actually going to live the longest too. I want to be kind of clear about something as we start this episode of kind of what it is and what it's not. I'm not anti-health, okay? I'm a doctor of natural medicine. I'm deeply interested in living a spiritual life. I study the quantum field, and I have dedicated my personal and professional life to actually helping people optimize themselves, not just their biology, but even helping business owners and people who know that there's more for them build their businesses. I believe deeply in the body, in the mind, in the spirit's capacity to heal. And I believe in the importance of nutrition. I believe in the importance of sleep and in movement and in nervous system regulation. None of that is going away or isn't a part of living an optimal, healthy life. But what this episode is recalibration. Because I think we've developed this cultural obsession with living longer. Look at that guy who developed an autoimmune condition, and he was trying to live to, I can't remember, I think it was 120 or 200 years or something like that. He's trying to live longer than everybody else, and he's spending millions of dollars. And I think we have gotten so focused on these things that it is making people dramatically less alive right now, because they're so concerned about getting their protocol right to biohack, to outlive. And I think we've built wellness protocols that are quite honestly eating the very joy and connection and out of things. And potentially the research says that this is what we need to thrive, when we're pursuing these biohacking things or utilizing all these tools, you might actually be defeating the purpose, so to speak. I think we have confused the floor with the ceiling, really. And I think a lot of people are listening to this are optimizing the wrong thing. I think they're doing it wrong. And I mean, I think that's also quite a bold statement to say, because this is wellness. I'm in the wellness industry. This is a billion-dollar industry. So today we're actually going to talk about biohacking, what the data actually says about its limits. And we're going to talk about the biology of joy, laughing, and saying yes to things that light you up in your life, and what it does to your immune system, what it does to your cortisol, what it does to your cardiovascular health, and actually your lifespan. We're going to talk a little bit about blue zones. We're going to find out what what the people who live the longest actually have in common. We're going to reframe health, essentially. I want you to walk away from this looking at your health, looking at your life differently. In true, like, homeopathic tradition, not as the absence of disease or the absence of pain, but as the freedom to live your life as the highest possible life. It's to not, so what's the saying? Like, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Okay? We're not avoiding things, the road bumps in our lives, the things that degrades our health sometimes, but it's understanding that all of these other metrics are way more important. Okay? So let's go. So let's start with what biohacking is getting right and actually where it goes kind of completely wrong. I want to give you biohacking its due first, because I think the most useful critique comes from honest acknowledgement. The biohacking movement has done some genuinely useful things. It's brought mainstream attention to sleep quality at a time when hustle culture was treating sleep deprivation as this like badge of honor, as this thing that if you want to make it to the top, you have to go without. And it got people then thinking about blood sugar, about inflammation. It brought a lot more awareness to that, to the food and hormone connection in a way that conventional medicine has pretty largely ignored, if we're being honest. The basics that it promotes, okay, if you look at biohacking, is movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress management. And all of those are backed by decades of evidence, and they work. That's not really the argument at all. But I think the paradox at the heart of it is this obsession over optimization that the movement does not really like to talk about, or this like biohacking area is like, well, we just do more of this. We just add in more protocols. We just add in more steps. We just add in more things. And that will help mitigate stress or mitigate your insulin resistance or whatever it is. And the thing is, the stress of managing a rigid health protocol can actually cancel out the benefits of it. In 2020, there was actually a Finnish study that I want to talk about that found that chronic high stress actually shortens the lifespan by about 3 years. So you're taking 3 years off of your life to just add in more shit every single day. Your 5 a.m. waking ups, your like 47 supplements, your relentless data tracking, your refusal to eat birthday cake, your skipping dinner with friends, drinks with friends, whatever it is, because you have to be in bed by a certain time. Otherwise, it messes up your circadian rhythm for one night. Like, generationally, we did not live by this metronomic schedule. We lived with seasons. We adjusted our sleep according to seasons. We ate seasonally. We ate what was available to us in our close proximity. That also meant meat. That meant fruits, vegetables, all of those things. So skipping all of these things that could actually bring you joy is generating often chronic stress where you are literally subtracting years of your life while trying to add to them by doing these things. So the math ain't math in here, okay? The University Hospital of Zurich actually published a study showing that biohackers run measurably higher risks of psychological compulsions and eating disorders. We've already seen this. The people that start on this health journey to lose weight, and then basically what they've done is they've gone from like a disordered eating of like overeating or binge eating to high restriction. It's the same mental patterns in a different box. Okay. It's like addiction shows up, or again, these types of mental issues show up in just different ways, but they're all a way to try to control your environment or try to control things. The mind, it gives the illusion of control. Even experts at Stony Brook Medicine noted that obsessing over constant biometrics, okay, this is calories, this is macros, this is heart rate, this is watching your aura ring every time, can actually create anxiety that is completely counterproductive to health. Okay, there was another longevity researcher that, I mean, he himself was pretty deep into the optimization world, but he wrote about his experience, and it was, I really enjoyed it because it was really honest. I mean, his biomarkers, perfect. Resting heart rate of 33 beats per minute, great. Sleep score, great. High, wonderful. And yet he said, the more optimized I became, the less alive I felt. And this was I was on a trip a few weeks ago in Canada, and I realized part of the reason I enjoy travel and I enjoy seeing things or experiencing new things, whether that's in my hometown or traveling someplace, is to be able to have that kind of new or novel experience, to feel like a beginner. It's part of the reason why I love education, is that I love a good rhythm and rhythmicity, but I also love that curiosity piece. And I love feeling like there's things out there that I don't know and I can't ever get quite right. That means there's always room for me to learn. There's always room for me to grow. And so anyways, he said, the more optimized I became, the less alive I felt. Joy was increasingly absent from the process. It was no longer fun. The spontaneity that makes life vibrant, the unplanned nights with friends, the weekend trips that threw off my sleep, became sources of stress. You see this all the time with people that go out of town and overplan, and they need time to recover when they come back, not from necessarily the travel, but because they basically took what they do every day of micromanaging, controlling, all of those things, and they just moved it to another location. Okay. When you're building a system that even you can't thrive in, that you will never be good enough, like think about all those themes that are playing out when you're building in this 12-step, 4-hour morning routine before your day even really gets fucking started. In his own words, he said he had built a help system that was hard to live inside. And I think this is because, again, we're trying to optimize everything, and the language that says is, I'm not good enough, and I'm only good if I'm at this level, if I'm doing these things. And there's these findings that stop every longevity conversation dead in their tracks. Okay, another health optimization expert was speaking at this major conference in the longevity space. Okay, then he cited data from mortality stats. Okay. Said the single biggest thing that was cutting life expectancy, more than diet, more than exercise, more than genetics, was loneliness. A 50% greater risk of premature death compared to those with strong social ties. Comparable in its like health impact, that's like to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I talk about this all the time because I often host group events or group healing sessions. I host groups to learn how to do business and spiritual development, all these different types of things. I host a lot of group things. And the reason that I do that is because we do not heal and we do not grow in isolation. Even think about plants. Okay, their root system reaches out. Trees communicate. They don't grow just from what is in the seed. They need the things in the soil. They need the sun. They need water. So when you're trying to grow, when you're trying to be more optimized, I think this is why people who often have a community that like works out together. So like CrossFit has done this really well. I think there's some drawbacks, but one of the things that I think that they've done incredibly well is build community into movement. And I think when we build, again, this is why yoga classes, different things like that do really well. They've built in community into movement or into a wellness practice. And I would say even before 2020, I mean, the World Health Organization has actually declared social isolation as a public health crisis. We have all these things to stay connected more than ever, and yet we are feeling more alone. We have all of these tools help, quote unquote, optimize our health, and yet we are sicker than we've ever been. There is a fucking disconnect, okay? And I think the optimization industry's response to that finding is just like more supplements, more wearables, more protocols. Like, you're alone. Let's, again, even Peloton together. Well, I'm still Pelotoning alone in my house. Okay, because connection, joy, friendship, community, that's not something that you can buy or optimize or find on a dashboard. You can only get that if you show up for it. If you are inconvenienced enough to leave your house, if you are inconvenienced enough to put yourself out there, if you're inconvenienced enough to be vulnerable, it shows up. Community connections show up, and it requires, showing up is the requirement for connection, for vitality. It also means you have to leave space for spontaneity, for presence, for willingness to be inconvenienced of that rigid health protocol for a day, 2 days, 3 days. You cannot optimize your way into a life that's worth living. You can only live your way into that. So I want to also talk about then the biology of joy and what your body actually does when you enjoy your life. And that's not to say that you need to throw all of your protocols out the window, but I want to give you some science on the other side. And it's funny because I feel like the science for biohacking is a lot of physical measures, whereas the science for joy and outliving, literally smiling more than everybody else, live more experiences than other people, more connection than other people. Okay, that's all emotional. And so we'll kind of get into this later, but I want to give you kind of the other side, because I'm not asking you to give up any like health practices per se and just like vibe it out. But what I am telling you is that joy, laughter, and connection, they all matter. Okay. And aliveness, those are biological interventions. Putting yourself out there to experience more joy, more novelty, like feeling alive, is a protocol. I want to start with the most delightful study that I've come across in years, okay? So researchers at the Wayne State University looked at old baseball cards, specifically the photographs on the cards from 1952. They analyzed the smile of the players that were photographed. And then they tracked how long these players lived. What I find really interesting is that the players who smiled really like broadly, like joy was on their face, lived to an average of 79.9 years. Players who had partial smiles, okay, so like a little grin or whatever, maybe no teeth. I hate the no teeth smile. Show me your teeth. They lived 75 years. So that's almost 5 years less. And players who had no smile lived 72.9 years. Okay, so that's even a 7-year decrease. And all that they looked at was the smiles. Okay. A smile is what's in proximity to joy. It's when you lean more towards being in the world. That frequency of your body is operating from a place of joy, from pleasure, from wisdom and aliveness. And that frequency, it expresses itself on your face. Your entire lifetime of biological outcomes is shown all over your body. By the way that you live, your smile just really isn't an expression. It's actually a health metric. You know those people that like, gosh, they just look so joyful. They just seem so happy. They always have a smile on their face. They are probably 10 times more healthier than the person who is trying to have no expression lines on their face. Hint, hint. Okay, leave it there. I want to talk about laughter. Okay, also because laughter, as adults, we don't laugh very much. Do you ever notice that? Like, kids laugh all the time, and we're like afraid to really like belly laugh, to snort, to look stupid, to like cackle. The research on laughter, though, is pretty extraordinary, and really, I don't see anybody talking about it in the longevity space, so we're going to talk about it here, okay? Researchers at Loma Linda University found that 20 minutes of genuine laughter, real laughter, the kind that like makes your cheek hurt, your belly hurt, your eyes water, increases immune cells by up to 40%. You guys, I was speaking of this. This was such a funny like segue because I knew I was recording this today. I didn't do it on purpose, but last night I ended up on a beautiful site of TikTok that I was laughing so hard. Thinking about it now, I wish I could show you guys. It's weird to describe this like woman is doing indoor skydiving. Anyways, and I was laughing so hard. I was probably up in my room. My son was downstairs doing dishes for 20 minutes, and he comes up and he's like, I can hear you laughing all the way downstairs. Our house doesn't carry sound well from upstairs to downstairs, how it's set up. He's like, I can hear you laughing. I was crying my tears. I was so glad I ended up on that side of TikTok, and I love when that happens. And then I'm like, it just kept feeding me more and more. Like, so funny. I was probably cackling to myself for a solid 40 minutes that night between all the videos. It was so funny. Okay. And I'm like, this is where I am. I always tell her, I'm like, this is where I want to be. I want to be on that side of TikTok all the time. Okay. Because again, like letting yourself just enjoy something, letting yourself just laugh, like increasing my immunity by 40%, like that's not just some like rounding error, right? 40% increase in your immune system, like capacity to fight infection, that actually helps to protect against cancer, respond to threats. Like laughter also increases natural killer cells. So the immune system's frontline defenders is what those are. It activates T cells and B cells. It raises immunoglobulin A. And that's the antibody that is your first line of defense against any respiratory infections. It does all of that within 20 minutes. I'm just laughing. I'm sorry. I will be on that side of TikTok all the time if that's the case. Like, this is no prescription. This is no, like, there's no side effect. There's no bill. Nobody's charging you for this. I mean, maybe they hit me sometimes with TikTok shop, but I'll take it. This is just like a piece of your immune system. The body is meant, when we talk about, when you see the scale of, you know, the vibration of certain emotions, this is what we're talking about. In my episode with Brooke Welsh a few weeks back, I think this was probably like 4 or 5 episodes back if you want to roll back and check it out, but she's an energy healer and we kind of talked about the frequency of different emotions. This is actually what we're talking about, okay? Like that laughing, enjoying yourself, things like that have a very physical response in your biology. It's not just something that you're feeling. You cannot separate the mind, the body, and the spirit. What I find fascinating is a single genuine bout of laughter drops cortisol by 36.7%. Your cortisol, that's your primary stress hormone, is also your primary aging hormone. So if you think one bout of laughter basically is anti-aging by like a third from one single laugh. Chronic cortisol elevation actually not only obviously accelerates aging because it's the aging like it's the hormone that's going to age you the most, but think about that too. It also degrades immune function. Cortisol does. It promotes inflammation systemically, so in your entire body. It is implicated in virtually every single chronic disease that we know of. So in that regard, like laughing alone is anti-aging medicine. It is measurable biologically, and you can pretty much reproduce. Like there's always something to laugh about. Like people who can't find the humor in things, can't find like the lighter side of things. Like I feel like those are the people who die early. But I want to talk about a number too, that when I found this, when I was researching for this episode, it hit hard. Okay. was like we talked about before. Why is it that children laugh so much more than adults? Children laugh about 300 times a day. But by the time you're 40, the average adult laughs 4 times a day. 4. Okay, so that's not maturity. That's not wisdom. That is slow, decades-long, biological self-deprivation. Like, why are you withholding that? And it has consequences in your immune system, your cardiovascular health, your neuroplasticity, your lifespan. We didn't stop laughing because we got healthier. We stopped laughing because we were concerned about lines on our face. We don't want to move too much. We got less healthy, partly because we stopped laughing. We stopped enjoying ourselves. Everything became so serious. Life's not that fucking serious. I promise you, we're all going to die. We're all going to end up in the ground. Which is fine. I'm not trying to, be the oldest person alive. I am trying to outlive people by experiencing more life, being more present for things, laughing more. And from even like a quantum biology perspective, okay, genuine laughter and joy actually create the most coherent states in the body. The heart's electromagnetic field, which is measured by HeartMath Institute instruments, it starts to shift towards coherence when we experience genuine positive emotion. Our biophotonic field, okay, our field around our body emits light. Our body itself emits light. We are, on a very biological level, light and frequency beings. Light is frequency. So it starts to become, and this kind of makes me think too of Dr. Emoto's work with water and like speaking words over water and how it changes the way that water crystallizes. So when you're in the states of more love and joy, you actually are in a more coherent state. Everything, your cells, the information, the way that your body speaks to itself and organizes all that becomes more coherent, more alive, more organized. So aliveness is not really just a feeling. It's something that's very measurable in your field. Your field state actually changes your biology in real time. It's why I do a lot of the work that I do that we work with your field, we work in the nervous system, because you can't separate, again, your physical being from your electromagnetic field. This is just the densest part of your field is your physical body. Okay. So I want to kind of go back for a second, though, to that loneliness number. Remember we talked about it? Because I don't really want to slide past it. This is really important because you have a 50% greater risk of premature death from loneliness, which is, again, it's about finding community. It's not about that you don't enjoy your alone time, but it's where you feel loved and supported by people, seen by other people, loved by other people. And just for context too, like this actually means that there is a larger mortality risk to feel lonely than if you are physically inactive. So again, we already did this comparison. It's comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So like, that's a greater mortality risk even than obesity. The World Health Organization, okay, is not some like on the edge, like fringe wellness publication. Do I think everything is always true and factual? Do I think, though, there is a lot of really good science there? Yes. And because, we've seen it, that this public health crisis, and that's what I mean, where I'm like, is there a lot of truth there? Yes. Do you have to sometimes weave through the bullshit? Also, yes. But we've seen it. We've seen even before 2020, and there was a lot of isolation that was happening, that we were experiencing a lot of loneliness. We have moved out of this communal, this multi-generational setup, right? This more tribal style of living to a lot of independence. And what's happened is that we feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And so now we need therapists because we don't have community. We have coworkers. We maybe have our partner. We maybe have people that we see at the gym, but we don't feel like we have community. And even as far as like tasks and things like that, like when you lived in multi-generational or communal living, like everybody contributed differently. And so all of the tasks that it's required to live every single day was more distributed. No wonder we're having such issues with postpartum depression and all of these things. Okay, but when you go to a biohacking conference, nobody is going around handing out business cards that says, "I help people feel less alone. I help you feel like you are loved and supported, that you have a community." That's not what people are selling. So let's talk about then this study. So this study from UCL Institute of Epidemiology, they actually ran a study that followed thousands of adults for 8.5 years. Okay, and so they measured well-being. So this is a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, positive emotional experience. And the results were that the people in the highest well-being category had 30% lower risk of dying over the study period compared to those with the lowest well-being category. So again, rated those sense of purpose, meaning, positive emotional experience, when they rated them lower. They lived on average 2 years longer if they had a higher sense of well-being. And this was not because of what they ate, to be honest. Nothing else changed. The people the way that they look at life is different. They didn't change their supplement protocol. It's how their life felt to them. That was the difference in living longer, because they were more of a participant in their life. They weren't afraid of feeling, again, vulnerable. They weren't afraid of putting themselves out there. They weren't afraid of trying new things. They weren't so constricted to their regimen that they stopped enjoying life. There was a researcher that also said, "We have previously found that happiness is associated with a lower risk of death." These analyses show that the meaningfulness, the sense of purpose that older people have in their lives is also related to survival. If you have, there's a wonderful book that the first time I read it, some people read it in college, but the first time I read it was in yoga teacher training. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. It's a phenomenal read. I think every single person should read this book, because he talks about his experience in a concentration camp. And he talks about it from the lens of, I believe he was a psychiatrist, one of those. Either way, he's looking at the way that people perceived things and the way that people engaged in the experience. And he talks often about the people that suffered the most. Remember, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. The people that suffered the most were not the people that experienced the most pain. They were the people that their mind and their stories and what happened in their mind was how terrible things were, how sick they are, how deprived, how all of these things. But the people that found small moments of joy, the people, at one point he kind of talks about, I think, somebody singing and still they used to be a musician or a singer or something like that. And at one point, singing or making music and tapping on things, stuff like that. And it's being able to find joy in life is so much more beneficial for your life than adding in 9 extra minutes of red light therapy while you're meditating, while, you're, I don't know what else you could add in there. You know what I mean? After you've taken your 19 supplements for the morning, physiologically, when you feel genuinely loved, connected, supported, your body actually releases oxytocin. So oxytocin is the bonding hormone. They all kind of do something different, but this is what you see it. So when moms play with their children, or when moms nurture their children, they actually release more oxytocin. When dads play with their kids, they release more oxytocin. So it's understanding that your biology needs some of this. Your biology, in order to the joy, the love, the connection, that producing that hormone, the hormone itself actually reduces your blood pressure. It inhibits cortisol. It activates the immune system. It releases serotonin, okay, which regulates mood and gut function, feeling loved and connected, supported. It releases dopamine, which is drive and motivation and reward. And It activates the ventral vagal state. Okay, so what this is that's the nervous system's social engagement mode. This is where your heart rate is regulated, your digestion functions well. Again, you feel supported by community. So you feel at peace to kind of be yourself. Your immune system becomes so much more optimal. You have access to creativity, healing is possible. Like, that's the state that when you're out of fight or flight and you've recovered well, that like things start flowing, that happens when you feel loved, supported, and connected. That doesn't happen on your grounding mat. That doesn't happen if you're adding in 7 more steps to be more youthful, okay? Connection is not just a mood. It's a physiological state that changes, again, your entire biology. This is the state in which your body heals most readily and rapidly. And I think that's important to understand, because if we don't, we start confusing things. Again, it's confusing the ceiling with the floor. Maybe you just need to get the fuck outside. Maybe you need to call your friends. Maybe you need to have everybody over for dinner. Have your friends over, have a potluck, do a themed dinner. I don't care. Do something where you feel like you connect with your community, where you can genuinely laugh. That is way more important than your $1,000 red light lamp. I'm not knocking red light. I think it's fantastic, but also red light is free, you guys. Sunset, sunrise, it's free. Putting it out there. I also have a red light. I'm not knocking having these things. I'm saying it's not a replacement. So if you haven't already, like, I know this is on Netflix, the Blue Zones like documentary, but let's talk about it a little bit, okay? I want to talk about the Blue Zones because Dan Buettner spent decades studying basically these 5 regions of the world where people consistently, they're centurions, so they live past 100. So this is Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica. I've actually been there. Icaria, I can't remember how you say it, in Greece, and Loma Linda in California. I've also been there. And he's looking for what's the secret, like what are these common things? And they talk about in this documentary that it's not a supplement, it's not a diet, it's not any like protocol. They don't all have the same fucking morning routine, okay? Here's what he found. Strong family ties. Okay, so when you're cutting off the family that doesn't agree with you, careful. I'm not saying to uphold toxic bonds and relationships. I am saying you also might need to take accountability for some things. And having connection, having family, having this closeness means there is going to be a give and a take. There are going to be things that you do that they do not like, but they tolerate, or they communicate differently about certain things because it's important for you to be in their lives. Somebody is going to give you grace. Make sure that you're also doing the same thing. I'm seeing it a lot, especially in like the millennial generation, is I'm just going to cut them off. They didn't respect my boundary. Okay, well, here's the deal. They grew up in a very different time than you. And I feel like a lot of times we are learning and we are doing things differently. And part of learn and unlearning is accepting that other people are on a different path. They don't have to agree with everything that you agree with in order for you to maintain that relationship. Okay. I'm pretty passionate about that. So I feel like it's the easy way out for a lot of people is just to cut people off, because then they don't have to deal with it anymore. And God forbid you have to develop some emotional intelligence or resilience and you're not in an echo chamber. Okay. Another thing that he found, so strong family ties, 1, and that kind of goes right into this second part, is kind of that intergenerational living. Grandparents lived and were embedded in their everyday life. Their elders had wisdom. They became, they were the babysitters. They were the person who helps with dinner. They had community of elders that got together and you would talk with them and they share their experiences. There was this intergenerational shared wisdom. So this is stuff that cannot be replaced by therapy. There was also regular communal meals. They ate with their family. They shared and bonded over food. That is one of the most primitive pieces of connection that we've seen across the ages. There was deep social integration. There was a sense of belonging. It was like so fundamental that it's hard to really even have like a name for it. This is just how people lived, how people live in general who have this really great sense of support, community. Again, it's not my way or the highway all the time. The price that we pay for community is inconvenience. Sometimes it's not all about you and you being right and your hard boundary being respected all the time. And again, give people the grace that you would like to be given. Okay. I mean, these blue zones actually shared almost nothing in like diets, genetics, climates. What they shared was being embedded in community, that they mattered to people and that people mattered to them. Daily, regular, not fancy, nothing remarkable about it, just human connection. Okay. That is a longevity intervention. It's something that as I've gotten older, the past probably about 10 years has been a huge focus for me, not only in my business and building community. It's why I built You Are the Medicine membership. It's designed to be community focused. Long term, I have a plan for lots of things that have to do with community for it. But community in general is completely free. Making friends, inviting people over, doing things together, spending time together. Hey, do you want to go on a walk? Like, don't overcomplicate it. Okay. In traditional Chinese medicine too, the heart meridian actually governs joy. Not just as like a metaphor, okay, as a very clinical reality. Joy is the emotion of the heart organ system. So when joy is chronically absent from your life, this throws off your heart meridian and it weakens that system. Your immunity weakens. The Shen, which is the spirit that actually animates the body, starts to dim. Again, less aliveness, less joy, less spirit in your physical being. And again, you see it in all these different cultures talking about like the heart or the spirit, things like that. So in the homeopathic philosophy, Samuel Hahnemann's original definition of health was not the absence of disease. It was actually the freedom to pursue your life's highest purpose. That was the definition of health, to be able to pursue the things that bring you joy. That word, freedom, is doing enormous work in that definition. That is a huge part of your life then, is freedom. The body that is optimized but not free is not health by Hahnemann standards. It's not healthy. So joy, connection, purpose were always clinical variables in a lot of these older medical systems. And so, again, when we think about a lot of this clinical research that's done now in kind of a more Western perspective, you will never be able to take out all the variables because you can't take away and disregard the person's perspective, the person's ability to feel joy, what's going on behind the scenes while they're measuring all these biomarkers. So I think some of the answers to living longer is a couple of things. I think it's saying yes. I think to outlive, to really out-experience life is to try new things. And I think live a very bold life. I think the more bold we are, the more that we actually live our lives. So let's talk about kind of some of this, like the novelty behind some of that. Because trying new things is not always fun. It's not always comfortable. And honestly, like you're worried about looking stupid. You're worried about being cringe. But the thing is, it's not just like spiritually enriching. It's not just like growth of a skill. It's biologically necessary according to a lot of this research, okay? Novelty is one of the most reliable triggers of BDNF. So brain developed nootropic factor. That's the brain's growth hormone that actually drives change and neuroplasticity in the brain. So every time you try something new, that's genuinely new to you, your brain actually responds by forming some of these new neural pathways. It starts to strengthen existing ones in some regions. It even starts generating entirely new neurons, which I think is really cool. So your brain does not age at actually the same rate if you are somebody that is constantly seeking novelty. It stays that more plastic, more malleable, more adaptive, more creative. And that actually prevents cognitive decline. It's why a lot of times, again, people that are constantly doing puzzles and things like that, a skill, but there's always novelty behind it. There's always, you're changing pictures or, all these different games that help keep your brain sharp. It's because of that. A study at NIH actually found that maintaining high curiosity at an older age, okay, predictive of better health, well-being than successful cognitive aging. So again, when I say successful cognitive aging, it's like the person that's doing it all right to age right versus the person that's curious and tries new things. There's even research from the Mayo Clinic that found, it was a study on aging. It found that individuals with higher levels of academic and career engagement showed a delay in cognitive impairment of 8.7 years compared to those less engaged peers. Not nearly 9 years from staying engaged with your life. Costs you 9 years when you were just showing up. Just showing up, doing the thing, and signing off instead of being an active participant in your own life. And then there's also the concept called ikigai it's a Japanese concept, and it doesn't really have an English equivalent that I can give you, but it roughly translates to the reason for being or the reason for waking up in the morning. And it's said to be kind of the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be rewarded for, right? These 4 kind of sections and what you find in the middle. And it really, when it says what you can be rewarded for, not where you can make the most money, that wasn't one of them, because reward looks very different. And I think your definition of success or your definition of health, it's starting to understand that more about yourself, I think changes what you choose for your life. So this is not a framework of like, again, once you hit these numbers, this is a lived experience that essentially tells you like, I feel like my life is worth living. I want to also talk a little bit about even like the sense of optimism, because there is some data behind it that I thought was really profound and underrepresented when it comes to the health conversation. So there was a meta-analysis that was synthesizing data from more than 220,000 people, found that optimists were about 1/3 less likely to develop cardiovascular disease and lived 4 to 8 years longer than their pessimistic peers. I would even say I would swap out pessimistic with also realistic peers, to be honest. I think sometimes people cloak pessimism and call it realism. I mean, that's a really huge shift. There's also a study from Harvard that found that optimistic women's lifespan was 5.4% longer than women who constantly had a negative outlook, and that was regardless of race or ethnicity. So this is one of the tools or one of the markers that is probably the most underutilized of just looking at the fucking bright side. And optimism is not necessarily being naive, and it's not toxic positivity. It's not pretending that hard things are not hard. It is kind of more the biological posture of the nervous system. It's the nervous system that trusts its own capacity to navigate things that are difficult. It's confidence in yourself. It's one that doesn't allow every little thing. You're not bothered by every little thing. Okay? So you're more regulated, you're more forward orientated, and it's more possibility based way of moving in the world rather than always trying to look for what's wrong. Okay? So then what does this actually mean in like real-time practice? It doesn't mean recklessness. Okay? I'm not saying ignore your needs. I'm not saying don't take care of your health. It means being a participant in your own life rather than a careful, ritualized, well-optimizer observer of it. And I think that's what's happening is when we're looking at metrics, we're just observing our body instead of feeling and being in our body. It means that we're willing to be inconvenienced about something because it's wonderful. It means going to dinner even though you're tired. It means going to the birthday party even though you don't know anybody that's there. It's calling the person when you don't even know what to say. It's apologizing because you hurt somebody's feelings and being the bigger person. It's starting the project when you can't see the whole thing done. Like, it's trying that thing that you want to learn so badly, even though you're not going to do it well. It's trying. It's those moments of engagement. Those are the biological events that your immune system is responding to. That is your system, your dopamine starting to come forward. That is your BDNF rising, your cortisol dropping, your nervous system shifting towards more of that ventral vagal state where healing can actually happen. You are quite literally shifting your biological state when you are fully engaged in your life, when you're not just sitting carefully optimizing everything in a monitored, safe way. Okay? So I want to bring this all together because I want it to be practical for you. And I want you to take something from this conversation and put it into action today. Because one, I don't think outliving and biohacking, outliving is not biohacking. I think outliving is also not abandoning health practices. Make sure that you're still getting sleep. Make sure that you're still eating healthy foods. I talk about this with all my clients. Keep the movement in. These are the floor. The floor matters. It's a foundation. But the floor is not your ceiling. The ceiling is your potential. And I think this is what the research keeps pointing to, is that the variables that predict not just how long you can live, but whether your life actually feels worth living. Lean into those. Outliving means I want you to laugh every single day, not politely, not the small social giggle that acknowledges something was mildly amusing, but let yourself fucking laugh. Full body, lose control, snort, possibly a little embarrassing, drop your cortisol by 36.7% and light up your immune system kind of laugh. Find reasons to laugh. Be silly. Cultivate people around you that produce it. Take laughter and joy seriously because it is. Outliving means loving people all the way, not managing appropriately, boundarying, self-protected kind of love, afraid of not being hurt. This is the kind of love where you have enough room to be disappointed and still show up. This is the kind of love that makes you really oxytocin rich and cortisol poor, my friend. That kind of love where you're willing to be open is physiological medicine for you. Okay? Outliving means trying new things that you're not good at, new things that you might fail at, and you might have to maybe try a business. You close it down. Who cares? Try something. Your nervous system says that mildly dangerous, but deeply fulfilling is more important. And every one of those contributes to the way that your brain functions and the way that your brain starts to refuse to age because you are so fully present in your life and enjoying it. Outliving means knowing your reason to wake up, serving it, doing it every single day, not perfectly, not optimally, not efficiently always, but doing it to the best of your ability every single day. That your sense has purpose and direction, that you're connected to something bigger than yourself today. That is more than data can ever do for you. And in the language of quantum biology and homeopathic medicine, in the language of this podcast, of frequency podcast, outliving is a frequency of being fully present. It's this biophotonic coherence that comes not from optimizing, but it comes from full engagement of your life. From the body of a person that's fully alive, who laughs, who loves, who risks, who connects, who creates, who shows up. This is a different biological system than someone who is careful, who's efficient, who's ritualistic, who's measurable, who's managed. That field is different. That light is different. Outliving is that freedom that comes from being lived in a body every single day. Okay? Here's what I want you to do after this episode. I don't want you to go buy a supplement. I don't want you to start a protocol. I don't want you to do anything to optimize something about yourself. I want you to think of one thing that you've been saying no to, that you've been scared of, something that your soul keeps pulling you towards, right? You keep getting this nudge, and I want you to say yes to it this week. I want you to go to one dinner that you're too tired for. I want you to have one meaningful phone call. I want you to have one moment where you are really fucking embarrassed, but you're laughing your ass off. Because that is a yes. That's not a break from your health practice. That is your health practice. You're in the quantum field. Your field is calibrated not by precision, but by the quality of your aliveness. Outlive your fears, outlive your smallness, outlive the version of yourself that thought health was something that you monitored rather than something that you embodied, okay? In doing so, I most certainly know that according to the data, you'll really start to outlive everyone who spent their whole life actually trying to live longer. Okay? I'll see you in that frequency. If you haven't already, please make sure that you're following this show. Please make sure that you're following me on social media. If you're interested in joining You Are the Medicine membership, in the show notes below, you can learn all about natural medicine, all about having confidence in your body and having these tools that you need to keep your body feeling the best. It has a lot of other tools like energetic rituals, yoga, breath work, meditations, all sorts of things for you. But you guys, until next time, cheers.